Have you ever witnessed an event that you just can't seem to understand? Everywhere around us, mysterious events occur every day. In this Iceberg video, we will look at 4 tiers of over 60 mysterious phenomena that people experience or are suspected to have happened around us. Let's get right into it as we start with lucid dreaming. Have you ever had one of those dreams where you know that you're dreaming? You're conscious of your dreaming state and you know that the world around you is not real. Researchers have defined lucid dreams as dreams during which dreamers are aware they are dreaming. Sometimes people having lucid dreams may find it hard to distinguish real life from their dreams. Their reality is warped and almost unrecognizable from a dreaming state. The famous Greek philosopher Aristotle was one of the first people ever to document an occurrence of lucid dreaming in a book called On Dreams. He said, "If the sleeper perceives that he is asleep and is conscious of the sleeping state during which the perception comes before his mind, it presents itself still, but something within him speaks to this effect. The image of Coriscos presents itself, but the real Coriscos is not present." It is still unclear why people have lucid dreams. Some claim to control it themselves, but why or how it happens remains a mystery. Another puzzling mystery is that of people going into the void and never coming back. Over the past 4 decades alone, more than 600,000 people have gone missing and have never been found. Many of such cases include abductions, eloping, or running from violence or conflicts. In the 20th and 21st century, there have been many missing persons cases. Here are 2 such cases. The first is Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was known for her support of women's rights in the 1920s and 1930s. Earhart departed Papua New Guinea for Howland Island with co-pilot Fred Noonan on July 2, 1937. The two never turned up again, nor did their aircraft. In 1945, a soldier from Australia reported seeing the wreckage of a plane that resembled Amelia Earhart's on the island of New Britain. Despite searches in the 1990s, this wreck was not found. The second is that of the case of Ray Grykar. Ray Grykar spent 20 years as the district attorney for Pennsylvania's Center County. Known for his firm positions, he was a well-respected officer. He claimed to be going for a drive in the country when he contacted his girlfriend one day in 2005, and he never came back. Grykar purportedly worked on the Penn State University sex abuse issue at the time of his disappearance. While assembling evidence for this case, Ray Grykar chose in 1998 not to charge Joe Paterno, a suspect in the case, even though he had a ton of evidence. It was the same in 2005, the year he vanished. It appeared like Grykar was gathering proof for the most significant case to blow up the sex scandal. When an investigator looked through Grykar's personal computer in 2009, the search history revealed a variety of queries for terms like water damage to a laptop, how to destroy a laptop, and so on. Even though Ray Grykar has never been located, the sex abuse incident in 2011 became very public. Next up, we have past life memories. Over the years of human existence, there have been many reports of people who seem to have flashes or a recollection of a past life, sort of life they've existed before, and they are suddenly remembering what they did. However, these reports are common among children and young adults who have dreams or night terrors and have visions of a past life and what happened.
Stories were so detailed. It just wasn't like a child that could have made it up.
Ryan talked about dancing on Broadway, working for an agency, traveling the world, being married 5 times. He even said the street he lived on had the word rock in it.
She turns to a page and I say, "That's me." That's who I was.
Over the past 50 years, more than 2,000 reports of past life memories have been reported in the US alone. The practice of recollecting old memories has existed for centuries in many cultures. For example, a Hindu scholar wrote about the concept of the soul being burdened with imprints from past lives as part of the karma in some of his Yoga Sutras, written in the 2nd century BC. The practice of past life regression was named pratiprasava, which means reverse birthing, and refers to the process of using memories of former incarnations to address present-day issues. This process continues to be practiced by certain forms of yoga even now. Yes, I know there have been conspiracy theories of sightings of mysterious creatures like Bigfoot or werewolves, but what I'm about to tell you is a bit more complicated. There is a cryptid creature called a Mothman. As the name implies, a Mothman is a creature that appears as a man, but with wings like a moth. Gravediggers in Clendenin, West Virginia reported seeing a man-like figure flying low through the trees close to a cemetery on November 12, 1966. Two young couples claimed to the authorities on November 15th that they had seen a huge, red-eyed, gray-flying figure in the vicinity of the TNT area north of Point Pleasant. Numerous reports of seeing a similar creature, known as the Mothman, were made in and around Point Pleasant throughout the course of the following year and a month. Ultimately, 46 people lost their lives when the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, Ohio, collapsed unexpectedly on December 15, 1967. There were rumors that the occurrences in both places were related because there were no longer any Mothman sightings in the vicinity after the collapse. Okay, so I know that ghosts might be the most common kind of mysterious phenomenon you will find on this iceberg. Ghost myths are so common that according to a survey carried out, 1 in every 5 Americans has seen a ghost. Ghosts are said to be able to do supernatural activities like walk through walls, disappear into thin air, and appear to whomever they choose. This story is so common, it has become part of pop culture. It's the story of the ghost of Stanley Hotel, a story related to the popular book and movie, The Shining. Established over a century ago, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, served as an exclusive retreat for affluent individuals seeking seclusion in the mountains. But as time went on, fewer people were staying there, and by the 1970s, the opulent hotel was in poor condition. Stephen King, a renowned writer, spent the night there around that time and was inspired to create The Shining. Visitors started to pour into this hotel, which turned out to be the inspiration for one of the worst horror films ever made. Henry Yao was one among them, having made an impromptu travel reservation in April 2016 in order to check it out. Henry Yao arrived, had dinner, and then went exploring the Stanley to shoot pictures. He stopped at the stairwell, watched for people to move out of the way, and then snapped a picture without giving it any thought. But Yao became really sick later that evening. Yao refused to go to the emergency room, despite his companion's suggestion. While driving home, Yao started looking through his pictures when he came across what he described as a really strange image of a person standing on the steps. But in reality, nobody was present. He shared the image on Instagram the next day, half joking that he had caught a ghost, and the world took note. Yo stepped into the public eye almost immediately after his ghost picture attracted the interest of international media organizations and paranormal researchers who sought to analyze the image he took. Next up is the mysterious occurrence of crop circles. So what are crop circles? Typically observed in fields in southern England, crop circles are huge geometric patterns made of flattened crops. Some researchers claim that crop circles represent messages from sentient alien life that exist outside our planet. But numerous studies have shown that they are actually the creation of humans. Just so you know, some people enjoy stirring up mysteries. For example, in 1991, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, who were from Southampton, England, admitted that they had used nothing more complicated than ropes and boards to create over 200 crop circles since the late 1970s. Their first inspiration came from a 1966 report of a sighting of a UFO near Tully, Queensland, Australia, whereby a flying saucer was said to have landed in a lagoon and left behind a depressed patch of reeds. Bauer and Chorley's patterns grew increasingly intricate as crop circles gained media attention, and they took great pleasure in surprising anyone who analyzed the circles with their unexpected patterns. But since crop circles also exist outside England, is it possible that they are also man-made, or is an extraterrestrial life form trying to talk to us? If you're not already familiar, a shadow person refers to the perception of a patch of shadow as a living species, or cryptid being. It is also called a shadow figure, or black mass. People who believe in the paranormal or supernatural may also interpret this perception as the presence of a spirit or other creature. The Hat Man is one example of a specific shadow person. He has traits in common with other shadow people, but gets his moniker from a fedora hat that he wears on his head. Well, that's what the people who claim to see him have described him to look like. There have been Hat Man descriptions since the late 2000s. The Hat Man is frequently connected to individuals who experience sleep paralysis. Just like ghosts, haunted houses are another very common mysterious phenomenon that many claim to have experienced. Let's talk about a popular one. So this house is so haunted it is known as the House of Death. Located on West 10th Street, New York, this house takes the cake when it comes to haunted houses. According to reports, the house is haunted by the spirits of 22 people who either died or lived there, one of which being a 6-year-old girl who was murdered by her adoptive father. The mansion was reported to have at one time been occupied by writer Mark Twain in 1900, and there are rumors that his ghost occasionally pays a visit. The alleged sighting of UFOs has formed a series of conspiracy theories around the world, especially in America. The first well-known UFO incident happened in 1947 when businessman Kenneth Arnold, while operating his small plane, claimed to have seen a group of 9 fast-moving objects near Mount Rainier in Washington. The crescent-shaped objects went like saucers skipping on water, according to Arnold, who estimated their speed to be several thousand miles per hour. The term flying saucer originated from an error made in the newspaper account that followed, which said that the objects had a saucer-like form. The US government established a panel in response to multiple reported UFO encounters around the nation. This panel reviewed photographs and videos submitted by the public in addition to conducting interviews. They came to the following conclusions. There was no clear security threat, there was no evidence of extraterrestrial life, and 90% of the sightings could be easily attributed to astronomical and meteorological phenomena. For example, bright planets and stars, meteors, auroras, ion clouds. My question is, what of the remaining 10% of these sightings? What are they? And can the government be trusted not to cover up the truth? Now this is both terrifying and creepy. A peculiar, strong, and very loud sound was heard in 1997 by researchers scanning the southern Pacific for signs of underwater volcanic activity. Underwater microphones, or hydrophones, spaced more than 3,219 kilometers apart across the Pacific, captured multiple recordings of the noise, which was unheard of in their previous experiences. Not only was it loud, but it also had a distinct quality that became known as the bloop. The sound terrified many ocean researchers, and at the time they believed it was an undiscovered sea animal. But after almost 10 years of research in 2005, they finally found the source of those resounding rumbles from the deep. The sound of an iceberg cracking and separating from an Antarctic glacier was the source of the bloop. An increasing number of icequakes occur every year as a result of global warming, shattering off glaciers, splitting, and finally melting into the ocean. But this explanation has done little to allay the fears of many who believe there are still many undiscovered and unimaginable creatures in the depths of the ocean. What's a psychedelic experience? You ever get so high you begin to see things or hallucinate? That's a psychedelic experience. When a psychedelic substance, most frequently LSD or psilocybin mushrooms, is used, a temporarily enhanced state of reality emerges, and this is known as a psychedelic experience. Some refer to this as a drug trip. For instance, taking LSD can result in an acid trip, whilst taking psilocybin, which is a kind of mushroom, can result in a mushroom trip, both of which are psychedelic experiences. The mysterious part is that some begin to sound enlightened after a psychedelic experience and begin to recount visions, which begs the question, do psychedelic drugs induce new experiences, or do they just reveal what is hidden in our subconscious? I know the question on your mind, what are flying orbs and how are they different from UFOs? Well, the short answer is that flying orbs are a kind of UFOs. Specifically, they are known as unidentified anomalous phenomena, and they are quite commonly seen by UFO chasers, NASA, and even the US Air Force. The US government assembled a panel following the sightings, and they revealed that the orbs had been seen traveling at various speeds. While some have been seen actively flying, others don't seem to move at all. There is no indication of thermal exhaust, such as heat produced by a car engine, in the UAPs. The orbs appear to be translucent, silver, or white based on the film. They are typically seen at a height of 10,000 to 30,000 feet, which is comparable to that of the majority of commercial airplanes. Despite numerous speculations floating online, the panel emphasized that the metallic spheres are not proof of extraterrestrial life, and more data is still needed to fully understand the orbs and the potential for life beyond Earth. Now here is a phenomenon that you don't want to experience. I mean, like, not ever. Well, have you ever been somewhere and you don't know how you got there? And it is not because you were under the influence of a drug or anything. More specifically, you are remembering things differently, recollecting things that didn't happen, and behaving mysteriously. That's the Mandela Effect. The term Mandela Effect describes a circumstance in which an individual or a group of people believe that something happened when it actually didn't. Fiona Broome coined the phrase in 2009 when she learned that, in contrast to real events, Nelson Mandela had passed away in the 1980s, when in fact he passed away in 2013. In most cases, the Mandela Effect is associated with a group of people rather than a single individual. The truth is, no one is resistant to the Mandela Effect, and it's quite easy to be affected. For example, the iconic words, "Luke, I am your father," are likely still fresh in your memory. You may be surprised to hear that the real line was,
"No, I am your father."
Have you ever been on the road on a sunny day and it appears there's water ahead of you, but as you get closer, the water disappears and the road is clean dry? That's a mirage. On the other hand, Fata Morgana is a complicated type of superior mirage, and it can be observed in a small band directly overhead as you approach the object. It's an Italian phrase named for the Arthurian sorceress Morgan Le Fay, who is thought to have constructed these phantom lands or fairy castles in the air to entice sailors to their deaths. These apparitions are frequently spotted in the Strait of Messina in Italy. Fata Morgana mirages severely distort the things or objects they are based on, frequently to the point where the original object is no longer recognizable. A Fata Morgana can be observed both in deserts and in Arctic climates. You could see them on land or at sea. Almost any form of distant object, such as boats, islands, and the shoreline, could be distorted by the mirage. Just like ghosts, alleged poltergeist sightings have for a long time become very rampant among human society, irrespective of culture or religion. According to definitions, poltergeists are a particular kind of ghost or spirit that causes physical disturbances such as loud noises, object movement, or destruction. The majority of reports or made-up accounts of poltergeists depict them as having the ability to pinch, bite, hit, and trip victims. They are also shown to be able to make noises like knocking on doors and move or levitate objects like silverware and furniture. Strong odors are also linked to the presence of poltergeists, as well as electrical problems like flickering lights and spontaneous fires. So when you hear poltergeists, think of ghosts with serious anger problems. Situated southeast of Ballard, Utah, the 512-acre Skinwalker Ranch is rumored to be the scene of paranormal and UFO-related occurrences. It was formerly owned by Terry and Gwen Sherman, and it was referred to as the Sherman Ranch. 18 months after relocating his family of 4 to the ranch, Terry Sherman sold the ranch because the events there had so terrified him. In June 1996, he told a local reporter about his terrifying experiences with his wife, Gwen. They reported seeing unexplained crop circles, unidentified flying objects, and the methodical, repeated mutilation of their animals in both a strange and surgical way. 3 months after the Shermans left, Robert Bigelow, an enthusiastic UFO chaser, paid $200,000 for the property. Bigelow installed 24-hour surveillance that included researchers on the ranch in an effort to investigate the paranormal allegations. A number of the researchers reported experiencing paranormal activity. However, they were unable to gather any significant tangible proof to back up the amazing tales told by the Shermans. The Shermans observed more than just flying UFOs while living on their property. They also reported seeing strange, huge creatures, the most notable of which was a wolf 3 times the size of an average wolf that Terry repeatedly shot at close range with a rifle, although it did not appear to have any impact. Subsequently, on the evening of March 12, 1997, following the ranch's sale, biochemist Colum Kelleher, employed by Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science, reported seeing a sizable humanoid entity observing the research team from a tree. Pretty ominous place if you ask me. You know how we are all living in a simulated reality controlled by super intelligent machines using our life force to power themselves? Well, that might just be the plot of the popular sci-fi trilogy, Matrix. But do we really live in something similar to the Matrix? Some people seem to believe so, and just like the movie, some people claim to witness glitches in the simulation. Here's one according to eyewitness reports. My friend and I were talking to our roommate and her girlfriend one night. My roommate had just received her new phone and was sitting in bed using it while the 4 of us chatted. So, my roommate had sat her phone down while we were all chatting. She goes to pick it back up and it's gone. Like, she had just sat it down for a few minutes, tops, before she noticed that the thing had disappeared. I call it for her and we can't hear it. We take the comforter and sheets off the bed and shake them all out. We look under the bed, behind it, everywhere we can. That phone is gone. Even though we hadn't left her room at all during our conversation when the phone disappeared, we tore apart the whole apartment trying to find it. Finally, we decided to try her car. It was in the locked trunk. We lived on the 3rd floor and were all in the same room watching her use it before it teleported. I challenge you to explain logically. So if you're not familiar with astrophysics, here's a simple definition for dark matter. Dark matter is a hypothetical type of substance that doesn't seem to interact with light or the electromagnetic field, according to NASA. Gravitational effects suggest the existence of dark matter, which general relativity cannot account for unless there is more matter than what is visible, meaning that dark matter possesses a gravitational pull that allows us to sense its presence, even though light cannot identify it. But you know the interesting part? Even though we know so little about dark matter, it makes up close to 31% of our universe and represents a big part of life in our universe and the galaxy. Growing up, especially for people born into Abrahamic religions, you may have been taught that everyone has a guardian angel. A guardian angel is a specific kind of angel sent to guide and protect a person, group, or country. The concept of angels watching over humans was central to ancient Judaism. Christian doctrine holds that angels are sent by the Lord to keep watch over and defend his people. They are not self-sufficient, and they are not fully aware of everything. They lack omniscience. The Muaqibat in Islam has a similar Islamic belief. Many Muslims believe that each person has 2 recorders to the left and right of them, and 2 guardian angels to the front and rear of them. So you may have a guardian angel who keeps you safe from evil. So this is fairly technical, and it's a wonderful relationship between technology and psychology. Psychologists characterize the Uncanny Valley as people's unfavorable response to some lifelike robots. Robotics professor Masahiro Mori originally presented the idea in his 1970 book, Bukimi no Tani. The relationship between a robotic object's human-like look and the emotional response it generates is known as the Uncanny Valley. This phenomenon occurs when individuals react negatively, or even disgustingly, to extremely lifelike humanoid robots. According to Mori's first theory, when a robot takes on a more human-like form, certain audiences' emotional reaction to it grows more sympathetic and positive until it resembles a human, at which point the reaction swiftly turns into intense dislike and repulsion. But when the robot's look gets increasingly indistinguishable from a human's, the emotional reaction turns positive again and gets close to human empathy levels. When these answers were plotted on a graph, a sinusoidal wave with highs and lows was produced, which caused Mori to use valley as the word to describe the relationship. Since the resemblance between man and machine was indistinguishable, the word uncanny was also used, hence Uncanny Valley. Those who have seen any moderately good movie about exorcism, you may be familiar with spirit possessions. If you are not, it's a state where an individual is characterized by peculiar behavior and a shift in personality that is seen as proof that the individual is directly under the influence of a supernatural force from outside themselves. Spirit possession symptoms include groaning, screaming, and making bizarre or disjointed speech, in addition to violent, peculiar movements. In certain cultures, when a person is possessed, they typically become sick and are perceived by their community as having committed a sin. In order to recover, they believe that their sin must be atoned for, usually by sacrifice. A good example of spirit possession was the story that allegedly inspired the making of the first Conjuring movie. The gist of the story was that a family called the Perrons, a husband and his wife and 5 daughters, moved into a 14-room farmhouse in Rhode Island. The wife, Carolyn, observed that the broom vanished or appeared to move around on its own. When no one was in the kitchen, she would hear something scraping on the kettle. Little mounds of dirt would be in the middle of a freshly mopped kitchen floor. According to reports, Carolyn looked into the home's past and found that it had belonged to the same family for 8 generations, with many of them passing away in horrifying or unexplained circumstances. A number of the kids had committed suicide by hanging themselves in the attic. One had been murdered, and several had drowned in a nearby creek. After some time, they found out the origin of their problem. It turns out that Bathsheba Sherman, who resided on the Perrons' property in the middle of the 1800s, was a genuine person. Although there was never a trial, there were rumors that she was a Satanist, and proof that she had contributed to the death of a neighbor's child. She was laid to rest in the downtown Harrisville Baptist Cemetery. The Perrons believed that the source of their suffering was Bathsheba's ghost. They called in demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who conducted exorcisms and cast out the spirit of the Bathsheba. However, the attacks didn't end until the Perrons left the house. Well, that's one way to evict someone from your house. When you hear a report of someone losing his possession, say a wallet or mobile phone, 2 things readily come to mind. Either he misplaced it or it was stolen. But have you ever considered a third option? that the said object disappeared. And I know what you're thinking, nothing just disappears. That will go against Sir Isaac Newton's first law that an object will continue to be at rest unless acted upon by an external force. But there have been reports of people who lost their possessions saying it just disappeared. For some scholars who delve into psychology and metaphysical occurrences, this claim might be true because there are cases on the internet of people who seem to experience the disappearing object phenomenon. Earlier, we talked about a glitch in the Matrix where objects seem to teleport themselves. It doesn't seem like disappearing objects are too far-fetched. So what do you think? Is this phenomenon true? Have you experienced it? Or is it just a case of bad memory? We've come to the final phenomenon on Tier 1 of our iceberg, and it is pareidolia. May sound like a big word. Have you ever looked at your shoe and it looked like it has a face? I mean a long face with a wide gap. That ability is called pareidolia. It is the propensity for perception to force a meaningful interpretation, usually visual, in an ambiguous environment, leading one to identify a pattern, object, or meaning when none exists. One well-known example is the face on Mars, a rock formation that, in certain satellite images, appeared to be a human face. Pareidolia typically occurs in objects that are significantly larger than the humans they mimic, like in the case of a cliff profile that resembles a human face. Up next is Tier 2, Astral Projection. The term astral projection describes an out-of-body experience in which the astral body ascends to the astral plane and departs from the physical body. Although astral projection can be practiced voluntarily, people most commonly experience this condition when unwell or during a near-death experience. To be honest, this phenomenon has some scientific credibility, especially when experiencing a near-death experience. The body protects itself and sends chemicals into the brain that induce these feelings. Also, this could occur under the influence of strong sedatives like ketamine. Several religious books, such as the Quran and Hindi scriptures, discuss the idea of an astral body. Also, one of the 8 components of the ancient Egyptian concept of the soul, called the Ba, was thought to be distinct from the physical body, and was most similar to the idea of the soul in modern Western philosophy. Globsters take us back to the ocean and the mysterious creatures that are being discovered every day. Globsters are an unidentifiable organic mass that washes up on the shores of an ocean or other body of water, according to experts. These globs are slimy and don't appear to be of any known species. Some have no faces or limbs at all, while others have meaty stumps and threads that resemble hair. They vary in length from a few feet to a house's width. Many globsters have been thought of as enormous octopuses at first. However, it has since been discovered that these are actually decomposed whale or giant shark carcasses. Large amounts of whale fat are being discharged from decomposing whale corpses, much like with the Chilean blob of 2003. Phantom vibration syndrome is the illusion that a smartphone or other electronic gadget is vibrating when, in fact, it is not. It's most frequently linked to the overuse of cell phones. It's been called a tactile hallucination since the brain senses a vibration that isn't there. In certain instances, this false sensation or feeling can result in psychosocial symptoms. Trust me, it's a real thing and can be a precursor to serious mental illnesses. The phrase phantom vibration syndrome was first used in print in 2003 in an essay titled Phantom Vibration Syndrome, which was authored by columnist Robert D. Jones for the New Pittsburgh Courier. Because the brain is constantly receiving a vast quantity of sensory stimuli, it has been theorized that PVS is a misinterpretation by the cerebral cortex of the brain. Muscle contractions may be misinterpreted as a vibration feeling by the user who is expecting a notification from their phone. So if you've been looking for a sign to reduce your screen time, especially on your phone, this is it. EVP is defined by researchers as audio recordings that contain noises that are perceived as ghostly voices. Scientists consider EVP to be a pseudoscience propagated by pop culture and a type of auditory pareidolia. Remember, we've talked about pareidolia earlier, which is the interpretation of random noises as voices in one's own language. Attila von Szalay, an American photographer, was one of the first to attempt recording what he thought to be ghostly voices, or what would come to be called EVP, in order to supplement his ghost photography research. He started trying in 1941 with a 78 RPM record, but he wasn't sure he was successful until 1956, when he switched to a reel-to-reel tape recorder. In collaboration with Raymond Bayless, von Szalay carried out multiple recording sessions, utilizing specially designed equipment that included a speaker and microphone connected to an external recording device through an insulated cabinet. Many sounds that were not audible on the speaker during the recording were discovered by Salai on the tape, so it appeared that he was successful. He concluded these noises were supernatural beings speaking. However, many scientists have come out in recent times to disprove von Salai's findings as a hoax. Do you ever feel a loud eerie in your head? Might be painless, but it can be quite uncomfortable. The worst part is that it happens during or before sleep. Well, that might be EHS. Exploding head syndrome is a form of sleep condition characterized by hallucinations of sound, such as explosions or crashing sounds. No one else can hear the sound, and it's usually not real, just your mind messing with you. Usually, the incident occurs unexpectedly as you're about to go to sleep or when you wake up in the middle of the night. Some folks experience multiple instances in one evening. Others experience episodes for multiple nights in a row, then go weeks or months without experiencing any. Exploding head syndrome is neither harmful nor indicative of any other major medical issue. After seeing a sleep specialist and getting enough sleep, EHS episodes ought to go away entirely. Yes, I know it sounds corny, but more sleep to solve sleep problems. As long as you are in this world, you must have or will likely experience near-death instances. As humans, we escape death every day. Experiences differ from person to person, and realities are not the same. Here are some near-death experiences. Yvonne Nachtigall claimed to have left her body and entered another realm during a brain tumor removal surgery. The colors around her were lovely and pleasant. She became aware that she had passed away and was now in the hereafter as she processed everything. She didn't feel scared or angry. The sensation of a gigantic wing, the wing of an angel, holding her, gave her peace. She experienced pure love all around her. Another woman who received CPR claims to have felt as though she was passing through a tunnel and was incredibly at ease and at peace. She says, "I do remember a being of light standing near me. It was looming over me like a great tower of strength, yet radiating only warmth and love. I caught glimpses of my life and felt pride, love, joy, and sadness, all pouring into me." If you're familiar with the story of Lazarus from the Bible, then you can relate to this mysterious phenomenon. When someone who has been declared dead unexpectedly starts to receive blood flow again and looks to be alive again, it's known as the Lazarus Effect. This occurrence is known medically as auto-resuscitation, which describes the resumption of blood flow on its own, following the end of cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. After the momentary restoration of blood flow, most people don't last very long. Most of the time, some people still pass away despite the Lazarus Effect. From 1982 to 2018, 65 cases have been reported in medical literature. Of them, 18 recovered completely. Scholars believe that the prevalence of this phenomenon is higher than what the available data indicates. However, they are unsure of who is more prone to get it or how common it is. Still on near-death mysteries, terminal lucidity refers to a sudden resumption of awareness, mental clarity, or memory in patients suffering from severe neurological or psychiatric conditions just before death. There is uncertainty on the root cause of terminal lucidity, making it a poorly known phenomenon in the context of psychological and medical studies. It's like when a losing team scores a touchdown barely seconds before the end of the game, and the point doesn't guarantee a win for them. A possible reduction of the person's bodily symptoms is a common characteristic of terminal lucidity. People who were nonverbal before, or who may have had trouble communicating, may be able to talk again. A rise in happiness or a resurgence of interest in eating and drinking may also occur. Individuals who suffer from memory disorders like dementia or Alzheimer's disease may suddenly remember and recognize individuals or things that they had previously lost the ability to identify. However, cognitive and memory functions are not the same at terminal lucidity as they are in healthy individuals or when these terminally ill people are healthy. Have you ever seen a nautilus shell of revolving colors? Well, a form constant is kind of similar. A form constant is one of the various geometric patterns that are consistently seen during hallucinations and altered states of consciousness. One of the first people to experiment and discover form constants was the German-American biological psychologist and philosopher Heinrich Klüver. Klüver observed that various users of mescaline, a known hallucinogen, displayed repeating geometric patterns. He dubbed these patterns form constants and divided them into 4 categories: spirals, cobwebs, tunnels, and lattices, which include honeycombs, checkerboards, and triangles. However, the knowledge of form constants has influenced other fields. For example, John Weinel, a famous author and researcher, has studied using altered states of consciousness as a starting point for song composition in electroacoustic music. According to hallucination narratives, his work arranges sound components in a way that mimics typical features of hallucinating states. For the purpose of creating psychedelic audiovisual content, form constants are heavily included in this work, sort of how a form constant appears. Think of a premature burial in two ways. One is an instance where someone believed to be dead wakes up and regains consciousness. The other is a case where an individual is buried alive, say as a punishment or just as a result of human cruelty. Let's take an instance of one of the possibilities. Everyone believed that 30-year-old South Carolinian Essie Dunbar had experienced a deadly epileptic attack in 1915. Doctors pronounced Dunbar dead, put her body in a coffin, and planned her burial for the following day so that her sister, who lived out of town, could attend. However, Dunbar's sister didn't move quickly enough, and when she got there, all that was left of the grave was a few clods of soil. She gave the order to remove the body. Essie sat up and grinned at everyone around her when the coffin lid was lifted. She continued to live for 47 years. Here we are examining the mysterious phenomena commonly known as hearing voices. What does it mean? Hearing voices or sounds that are not there is called auditory hallucination. In most cases, they are temporary and superficial, but other times they could be an indication of a more significant neurological or mental health issue. In some cases, excessive stress, lack of sleep, and drug use have all been linked to the emergence of auditory hallucinations. In mentally sound people, auditory hallucinations can also happen while they are in an altered state of awareness, such as when they fall asleep and wake up unexpectedly. This can happen during hypnosis or actual hallucinations. Aural hallucinations were frequently perceived in ancient times as either a blessing or a curse from God or the gods, depending on the particular society. While the more common delusions in symptomatology were frequently understood as possession by demonic spirits as retribution for transgressions, the oracles of ancient Greece were known to suffer auditory hallucinations when inhaling specific hallucinogenic vapors, such as the smoke from bay leaves. Here is something weird. A sickness known as Havana Syndrome struck several diplomats and staff members from the US and other countries. Among the symptoms of the illness were anger, nausea, dizziness, and mental fogginess. They frequently appeared after a loud noise. There is no known etiology of Havana Syndrome, and the symptoms rather than the illness itself appear to be the main focus of treatment. Well, it all began in 2016. Employees of the Central Intelligence Agency stationed in Cuba began to observe unusual activities in 2016. They started to feel exhausted, with ringing in their ears and excruciating headaches. It was much worse for a few since they began to experience a loss in memory and cognitive abilities. Havana Syndrome does not currently have a specific treatment. Alternatively, symptom-based treatment may be the approach that has proven quite effective. Well, if the UFO conspiracists are to be believed, the Black Knight is an artificial satellite of alien origin that has been circling Earth for about 13,000 years. The satellite story is probably a synthesis of multiple unrelated tales about different objects and their interpretations, all of which are well documented on their own, and none of which used the term Black Knight when they were originally published. As for origins, this satellite was talked about by Nikola Tesla. Tesla wrote about his encounter in a February 1901 Collier's Weekly article. The alterations I noted were taking place frequently, and with such a clear suggestion of number and order that they were not traceable to any cause then known to me. I can't help but feel that I was the first to hear the greeting from one planet to another. The existence of Tesla's comments supports the belief of many UFO enthusiasts that the Black Knight satellite exists. Yeah, I know we talked about the Hat Man and Shadow People, but here's more information you should know. The Hat Man is primarily known for causing sleep paralysis. How exactly does the Hat Man cause sleep paralysis? Well, scientists have been puzzled by sleep paralysis for ages. A Dutch physician who was treating a patient in 1664 identified sleep paralysis as the incubus or the nightmare, and this was the earliest recorded clinical instance of the condition. When you sleep, your body goes into paralysis during REM sleep to keep you from falling out of bed or hurting yourself or other people while acting out dreams. In the instance of REM sleep paralysis, This paralysis does not instantly cease as you wake up from the paralysis. The Hat Man is described as being up to 10 feet tall, with eyes that could be deep pools of blackness or glowing red. He is frequently seen wearing a trench coat-like jacket and a highly prominent hat. He's also reportedly strangely silent. Other sleep paralysis demons are known to touch, assault, or sit on your chest. He doesn't do any of those things. Frequently, he just observes you from a corner of the space. Occasionally, he lingers above your chest, inspecting you intently until you remain motionless. Earthquakes are fairly scientific and occur by means of explainable reasons. So how come there are mysterious earthquakes? These kinds of earthquakes occur in unexpected places where the science doesn't support their occurrence. Near the Noto Peninsula, which is located around 320 kilometers northwest of Tokyo, there have been multiple magnitude 6 earthquakes throughout the previous 20 years. And seismologists add that a modeling study from 2014 determined that an event of magnitude 7.6 was plausible. However, because there is no geothermal or volcanic activity in the area to produce high-pressure fluids, seismologists did not anticipate an earthquake swarm there. But from November 2020, a small portion of Noto's northeastern point has been shaken by thousands of earthquakes annually, resulting in an exceptionally prolonged upset in the tectonic plate of the area. Some people believe that these quakes have a supernatural cause. Who wouldn't want to live forever? Here's a list of people who are believed to be immortal, and it is said they will live forever. The first is the story of the Wandering Jew, a Jewish shoemaker from the 1st century. He allegedly taunted Jesus when he was being crucified. The curse from Jesus was to go on forever till I return. The Wandering Jew will therefore survive until Jesus returns for a second time. Next is Endymion, who, according to Greek legend, was a shepherd who resided on Asia Minor's Mount Latmus. Though Endymion is mortal and would eventually pass away naturally, Selene begged Zeus to grant Endymion immortal life in exchange for a protracted sleep. Selene fell in love with him at first sight. Even when he slept, Endymion's handsome face and satisfying smile persisted. The last person on my list is Olumba Olumba, a Nigerian religious leader who founded the Brotherhood of the Cross and Star, a purportedly new and dreadful religion. Olumba declared himself to be God Abraham in human form. His followers assert that he is eternal. There are more people who are believed to possess immortality, and with them, a flock of people who believe in them. Okay, here is another very strange, mysterious occurrence. The term spontaneous human combustion describes a fatal fire that appears to have started inside the victim's body rather than from an obvious external source. Here's a notable case. A woman called Matilda Rooney caught fire late on Christmas Eve 1885 in Seneca, Illinois, a small rural town. When it happened, she was by herself in her kitchen. Her entire body, save for her feet, was swiftly consumed by the flames. Her husband Patrick was also killed in the incident. He was discovered in another area of the house, suffocating from the fumes. The event perplexed investigators. There was no cause to believe foul play was involved. That night, the Rooneys had been resting and drinking whiskey. After spending a few hours with them, a farmhand had not observed anything unusual. Moreover, there was no evidence of an ignition source for the fire. She got consumed by a fire that started in her body and ended in her body. Her house was not consumed except for the smoke that killed her husband. Have you ever felt like jumping while you were up high and glanced down? The call of the void is the term used to describe this unexpected, often sudden thought. This fleeting emotion, which usually has nothing to do with a person's character, is quite common. 431 undergraduate students were polled in 2012 by Jennifer Hames of Florida State University to find out if they had ever encountered this occurrence. She evaluates their ideation levels, depressive symptoms, mood behaviors, and anxiety levels as well. It was discovered that over 50% of the individuals who had never considered suicide had at least once felt the call of the void. In the meantime, more than 75% of people who had suicidal thoughts or ideas said they had felt the want to jump out of a tall building's window. The next set of shadow people we'll be talking about is the Dark Watchers. Who are they? So according to reports, people have been looking up into the rural mountains of California for almost 300 years, seeing tall, dark beings peering back at them. only to have them vanish a short while later. The Dark Watchers seem to be shadowy, usually 10-foot-tall men dressed in ominous capes and caps. They usually show up in the afternoon. Scientists have theorized that they are just the products of the pattern-seeking imaginations of the viewers. Put another way, it's a classic example of pareidolia. Another potential explanation for this mystery is the existence of an optical illusion called the Brocken specter. The term mountain specter refers to a Brocken's phantom, which can happen in specific atmospheric conditions when the sun is at a specific angle. It is possible to project the subject's shadow onto a bank of clouds surrounding them, giving the appearance of a huge, shadowy, humanoid figure. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure about walking through the mountains of California knowing that there will be dark watchers just over my shoulder. Unlike flying orbs, sky orbs are stationary objects still in motion that have similarities to celestial bodies. More than ever, there are many sightings of these objects all around us. In July 2023, strange floating orbs of light appeared in the night sky over Texas, raising suspicions about UFOs. On social media, locals in the state of Texas posted images and videos of the enigmatic glow. Between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m. CT, the orbs were observed traveling eastward, according to reports from nearby news outlets. Astronomer Jonathan McDowell of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in Boston, Massachusetts, claims that observations of the orb in Alaska and other regions of the nation line up with the trajectory of a Chinese satellite deployment rocket. According to McDowell, there are frequent rocket fuel dumps in the lower 48 and other parts of the planet that produce observable light spheres. He claims that in 2017, a comparable luminous sphere observed across a vast region of northern Siberia was ascribed to ballistic missile exhaust from experimental launches. You hear that, people? There's nothing to be scared of. The government would never lie to you. We've come to the last mystery in Tier 2, and it's about feral children. Feral children are children who have grown up with little human interaction due to intentional or unintentional isolation. The idea of a child raised by animals is a recurrent issue in mythology because these kids are frequently perceived as existing in a transitional space between human and animal existence. There are accounts of a wolf boy in Germany and children kidnapped by bears in Poland. There was also the account of John of Liege, a boy who was abandoned by his parents in the woods and was adopted by animal habits and was able to survive for years, which happened in 1644. These children were described at the time as having animal characteristics such as running on all fours, hunting and gathering food, having extraordinary hearing, and not speaking. Philosophers were intrigued by these children's persistent animalistic behavior and apparent incapacity to learn language when a number of them were saved from the wild and reintegrated into human society. This led some to question whether these children truly belonged to a distinct species within the human family. We kick off with Tier 3 with the mystery of national park disappearances. It is no news that hundreds of people have been declared missing from national parks. Here's one baffling case that happened at the Grand Canyon. On their honeymoon, newlyweds Glenn and Bessie Hyde tried to canoe the Grand Canyon in 1928. They were trying to set a speed record paddling through the canyon in a boat that Glenn had constructed. The Hydes were last seen on November 18th. A month later, on December 19th, their boat and all of their belongings were discovered undamaged. Everything on board the boat, including Bessie's diary, was undamaged and in excellent shape. Although search groups searched the canyon, their remains were never discovered. It's likely that the pair washed out of the boat in one of the rapids, and the boat moved downstream without them. There is a widely held belief that Bessie killed her new husband somewhere in the canyon. With a population of roughly 1,400, Moodus is a village located inside the town of East Haddam, Connecticut. It is only 3 square miles in size. Moodus is well known for its Moodus noises, which are unexplained rumblings, thunderings, and crashings that seem to come from Mount Tom, which is situated in what is now Moodus State Park. The region was known to the Native Americans as Moodus, which translates to place of bad noises. They believed the sounds to be the work of bad spirits, or a divinity called Habamak. Afterward, English colonists associated the sounds with witchcraft, or the devil. The Moodus noises have since been described by science to be the consequence of tiny earthquakes known as micro-earthquakes. These are any earthquakes that are below magnitude 5, on the Richter scale. Barisal guns are a group of loud booms that were heard in the 19th century close to the Barisal area of East Bengal, which is now in Bangladesh. The origin of the sound is the subject of several theories. One popular theory is that the sound of the waves, split up by the geography of the area, is what generated it. It was originally mentioned in the Barisal District Gazetteer in 1870 AD. Initially, the British administration at the time thought that explosions were caused by cannon discharges. However, despite extensive investigation, no significant conflict that might have generated such a huge boom was discovered. The sound is an example of a SkyQuake, which is a sudden, loud sound that is unexplained and unaccompanied by seismic activity. Numerous coastal towns worldwide, including Bangladesh's Brahmaputra River Delta and the Ganges Delta, have reported hearing similar noises. The term 21 grams experiment refers to a research study conducted in 1907 by physician Duncan McDougall. McDougall tried to calculate the mass a person lost when their soul left their body to test his theory that souls had a tangible weight. McDougall made an effort to determine the mass change of 6 patients just before they passed away. 6 participants lost 21 grams each. In addition to being accused of using deceptive techniques and plain fraud to acquire his results, McDougall has had his experiment rejected by the scientific community. Australian author Carl Kruselnicki claimed the experiment was selectively reported because McDougall disregarded most of the results, noting that just 1 of the 6 patients examined matched with the theory. The near-death experience, NDE, of American singer-songwriter Pam Reynolds, who was born in Atlanta, Georgia, is one of the most widely reported in the literature. The event appeared to take place amid a total shutdown of her body and brain, which had been deliberately induced to enable an extra cautious brain aneurysm surgery. Reynolds's body temperature and vital signs had to be continuously monitored during the procedure by equipment positioned throughout her body. Her ears were fitted with molded speakers that would click at regular intervals so that other devices could measure the responses of her brain to them. Her heart stopped completely as a result of complications during the surgical procedure. Her brainstem shut down when her core temperature hit 60, causing her brainwaves to flatten. She was considered clinically dead by accepted criteria. After a while the warming process persisted, her brainstem and higher brain both gradually started to exhibit activity once more. By midday, it was evident that her heart would not restart on its own through warmth. Therefore, defibrillator shocks were utilized to shock it into life. At 2:10 p.m., Reynolds, who had been declared clinically dead for almost 60 minutes, was brought back to the recovery area in a stable state. A near-birth experience, sometimes referred to as a pre-birth experience or premortal experience, is the term used to describe an alleged recollection of an event that happened before or during a person's own birth during pregnancy, an alleged memory of one's own pre-existence. Unfortunately, many experts don't agree with the assertion of a near-birth experience. For example, Susan Blackmore, a skeptic and psychologist, asserted that the near-birth experience theory is pitifully inadequate to explain the NDE. When the newborn was first born, it would not have seen anything resembling a tunnel. In order to maintain physiological capacities, biological function may be temporarily or permanently slowed down or stopped. This phenomenon is known as suspended animation. Microorganisms and certain plant tissues, like seeds, frequently exist in states of suspended animation. The majority of plants experience dormancy at certain times, and many animals, even enormous ones, may hibernate. This is nature's way of ensuring suspended animation. What about humans? According to certain theories, bone lesions may serve as proof that early humans hibernated. Researchers Juan Luis Arzuaga and Antonis Bartsiokas note that primitive mammals and primates, such as bush babies and lorises, hibernate. This suggests that the genetic basis and physiology for such a hypometabolism could be preserved in many mammalian species, including humans, according to their paper published in the journal L'Anthropologie. One common type of hallucination that occurs when you are falling asleep is a hypnagogic hallucination. They normally don't warrant concern and are rather common. Usually, they have a visual quality, such as pictures of shapes, patterns, or changing lights. Approximately 86% of hypnagogic hallucinations are visual in nature. You could think you're gazing into an array of colors. They might also feature pictures of faces, animals, or people. UVB-76 is a shortwave radio station that operates on a frequency of 4,625 kHz. It emits a brief, repetitive buzz tone that repeats every day for 24 hours at a pace of about 25 tons per minute. Government or broadcast officials have confirmed the station's mission. The voice messages, according to former Lithuanian Minister of Communications and Informatics Rimantas Plaikys, are meant to verify if operators at receiving stations are awake. Another possibility is that military cipher experts are continuously listening to the transmission. The buzzing serves as a channel marker for preserving the frequency engaged and as a discouragement to other possible users. SkyQuakes are mysterious noises that resemble a big bang and appear to originate from the sky.
I've never heard of.
A skyquake is defined as a boom that occurs for no apparent reason, whereas a sonic boom is caused by an object that breaks the sound barrier. A skyquake sounds like a far-off loud thunderstorm without any clouds in the sky. It is sometimes compared to the sound of missile fire. There may be so much reverberation that it vibrates homes and structures. Reports of this occurrence have also been made in Australia, Germany, Iran, Ireland, Scotland, and other areas along the US East Coast, where they appear to originate from far offshore. Over 64 distinct instances of loud, inexplicable booms have been reported globally in 2017 alone. On December 3, 2017, one of them happened close to Daytona Beach, Florida. The last item on Tier 3 is star jelly. You've heard about land animals and water animals. How about space animals? The star jelly is the closest thing we would get to a space animal, however it's non-living. Star jelly is a strange material that is frequently discovered following meteor showers. Its gelatinous shape and unknown origins have sparked curiosity. Some people believe it to be meteorite fragments or atmospheric phenomena leftovers. But there's another explanation that experts believe makes more sense. The most widely accepted theory states that star jelly is simply an unfertilized frog spawn that has been torn from the abdomen by avian predators. This phenomenon explains the discovery of star jelly in the fall. The mature female frog carries a batch of eggs during this season that will be deposited in the spring. Each egg is encased in jelly secreted by the oviduct wall as it travels down the oviduct. This jelly has a little volume, but it expands greatly when it comes into touch with water. When a predator catches a frog and pulls apart its ovaries, the jelly is released. This jelly then absorbs water from the rain and soil and grows into enormous masses that are visible to humans. We're down to the final tier on our iceberg, Tier 4. The Oregonian characterized the Forest Grove sound as an inexplicable mechanical scream that was heard in Forest Grove, Oregon in February 2016. In Forest Grove, Oregon, there was an erratic, nighttime, high-pitched noise in February 2016. The Department of Forestry concluded that the noise was not coming from their apparatus. The Forest Grove Police Department said on Facebook in late February 2016 that the noise was not a safety hazard and that they were stopping their investigation until more information became available. But after February 2016, nobody could hear the sounds. Throughout the summer of 2016, there were reports of a pinging sound, which was also occasionally referred to as a hum or beep in Fury and Hecla Strait, which is about 120 kilometers northwest of the Canadian town of Igloolik. The unusual noise, which has been characterized as a ping or hum, and is supposedly audible through the hulls of boats, has been attributed by observers to the decrease in the number of sea animals in the area over the summer. Much recently, a new kind of unverified sickness has been ravaging throughout Asia and its name is Yinzibing. The bad thing about this disease is that it induces AIDS-like symptoms, although the individuals who suffer from this disease are not positive for HIV. Rumors of an AIDS-like sickness spreading across mainland China in 2011 attracted the attention of Hong Kong and Chinese media. People with Yinzibing were said to have AIDS-like symptoms, including enlarged lymph nodes, hypodermic bleeding, and weakened immune systems. Yet their HIV test results were negative. Now here's the kicker. See, it turns out the Chinese Disease Prevention and Control Bureau declared that the so-called Yinzibing was a mental health issue related to an AIDS phobia and that no new viruses had been discovered. So it turns out the disease was a malady. Sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, SADS, is a genetic disease in the heart's electrical system, which causes an abnormal heart rhythm. It was initially identified in 1977 among Hmong immigrants from Southeast Asia living in the US and Canada. A retrospective examination of records revealed that between 1982 and 1990, 230 previously healthy Thai foreign workers in Singapore unexpectedly passed away from unidentified causes, raising awareness of the illness once more. The term the hum is frequently used to describe extensive claims of a low-frequency, invasive, and continuous noise that many people, but not all of them, can hear humming, rumbling, or droning. Worldwide reports of hums have been made, notably from the US, UK, Australia, and Canada. David Bagule, the chief of audiology at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, stated that he believes people's issues with hum were mostly related to the physical environment around 1/3 of the time, and that the other 2/3 were caused by people paying undue attention to harmless background noises. His work focuses on reducing distress using psychology and relaxation methods, which might eventually cause the noise to subside or even go away. There's a good chance the hum is not real and just a sound in an individual's head.